Hello, I'm David O'Keefe, and this is number 0695, the Stuff File program with Peter Anthony Holder, and it comes to you right now.
The following program is brought to you in living color.
Now, it's time for an eclectic mix of interviews and some of the oddest news stories you'll ever hear. It's the Stuff File program with Peter Anthony Holder.
Hey there, hi there, ho there! Peter Anthony Holder here with you, and yes, this is indeed another edition of the Stuff File program, number 0695. And coming up on this edition of the Stuff File program, we remember Bob McGrath from Sesame Street, who recently died at the age of 90. He was one of the first 4 humans on the classic children's program. He talked about how he got the job.
When someone first mentioned that there's a new kids show, do you think you'd be interested? I said, no, not in the least. I thought it might be another not-so-terrific kiddie show. There's a little on the silly side. And then when I was called in a couple months later and I saw some of the early animation and film and had a guy by the name of Jim Henson I'd never heard of at that point, and saw some of that Muppet work and realized this was going to be really a very different and quite brilliant show. So hundreds of us auditioned on videotape, and they showed it to a bunch of 5-year-olds around the country, and they narrowed it down to a cast of 4. And so I got my job from 5-year-olds.
Jennifer Khoe from the TV show Kung Fu. She plays the shapeshifter Xiao.
Xiao is such a fun one. This has been such an incredible experience. This character she shapeshifts. She's a traveler. So what's been really fun with this villain is that she inhabits a lot of the other characters in the show. So you get to see her basically kicking butt as well as other characters. And she's got a lot of tricks up her sleeve. Always thinking, very manipulative villain, super fun to play because it's hopefully not much like myself. So it's fun to dig into a character that's very different from you.
Science writer Andrew Fazekas, the night sky guy, talks about the success of NASA's Artemis 1 mission.
We see the moon juxtaposed with the Earth in the background. It's been absolutely spectacular. And we saw the uncrewed Orion module barnstorming the lunar surface. And the visuals, there's actually live footage, which I think is incredible. I love seeing these live footages being beamed back from the spacecraft, showing the surface of the moon with all the craters and then the little thin crescent Earth in the background, so far away.
And there's lots and lots of Stuff File news and, of course, an idiot of the day. The guest slater, the person who told you this was show number 0695, was history professor, military historian, and filmmaker David O'Keefe, author of many books, including One Day in August, the untold story behind Canada's tragedy at Dieppe, and 7 Days in Hell, Canada's battle for Normandy and the rise of the Black Watch snipers. So clearly he's a very smart guy, despite the fact that we've been friends for, about 30 some odd years. As a matter of fact, we have been playing since kids Stratomatic baseball, and we are still playing in a league this very day. Thank you very much, Dave, for doing the guest slate on this edition of the Stuff File program, a show that is listener-supported, fan-funded radio that depends on you for our success. Join us at patreon.com to help make this show an even bigger and better radio experience. Well, let's get right to the stuff. 46-year-old Mindy Janet Stevens, the wife of an assistant fire chief in Texas, was arrested on December the 1st and charged with illegal dumping after an incident that took place on November the 10th in Electra, Texas. Stevens, seen on security footage wearing a white hazmat suit and a yellow mask, deposited 3 5-gallon buckets of human excrement at the front door of the Electra Police Department, then got into her SUV and drove away. Stevens told another media outlet that she had been renting an apartment to a man who had not paid rent or utilities for a year, and after she evicted him, she found the buckets of waste. He'd been pooping in the buckets, she said. She said she called the police department to ask what she should do with them, but officers weren't helpful, so she took the buckets to the station. City wastewater officials removed them. By the way, this isn't the first time Mindy has had brushes with the law. She was charged with assault in 2000, family violence assault in 2010, and aggravated assault causing serious bodily injury in 2020. It seems like every 10 years she goes off on somebody. You know, she keeps this up, and one day she might find herself pooping in buckets. An Olive Garden restaurant manager in Overland Park, Kansas, is out of a job after they sent a ranting message to team members about excessive time off. The message said, "We are no longer tolerating any excuse for calling off. If your dog died, you need to bring him in and prove it to us. If you only want morning shifts, too bad. Go work at a bank. Do you think I want to be here until midnight on Friday and Saturday? No, I'd much rather be at home with my husband and dog." An Olive Garden representative said the message was not aligned with our company's values. We can confirm we have parted ways with this manager.
The Olive Garden. When you're here, you're family.
Come on, admit it. We all know families that talk that way. On December 5th, as 35-year-old Hassan Choker appeared virtually from jail for a hearing in Wayne County, Michigan, he became frustrated with Judge Regina Thomas and started yelling and pointing at the camera. Judge Thomas asked for his microphone to be muted and things escalated. Said Judge Thomas during the proceedings,
"I want the record to reflect that while the court has muted the defendant's microphone at the Oakland County Jail, he appears to be yelling and pointing at the camera."
Oh, but Choker didn't stop there.
"And now he has removed his pants to show the court his backside. So I'm putting him in the waiting room."
Judge Thomas said she didn't know why anyone would think it was appropriate to pull down his pants and show the court their behind during a court proceeding. Choker's attorney agreed with Judge Thomas that a mental health evaluation probably would be a good thing and said Choker was just exercising his right to free speech. Thomas wasn't buying it, though. She said, "We don't get to do and say everything we want to without the consequences of those actions. That's where your client finds himself today." By the way, would you like to know exactly why he found himself in jail and in front of the judge in the first place? He was charged with resisting arrest and was out on bond when he also allegedly yelled anti-Semitic comments outside a temple daycare. Oh, there's a special place in hell for people like him. And on that topic of a special place in hell, how annoying would you find this sound? To tell you the truth, it wouldn't really bother me, but there is a 72-year-old woman in Germany who didn't take too kindly to it. She was arrested on November 29th in Berlin after she allegedly turned off her hospital roommate's ventilator not once, but twice, because the sound of it was annoying her. Excuse me, do you want to plug that back in, please? Thank you. After the first incident, police said the woman was told the machine was necessary to keep the roommate alive, but she switched it off again later in the evening. The patient had to be revived, although she is expected to recover. The suspect is charged with suspicion of attempted manslaughter. It's only attempted because they didn't hear this. So, this impatient patient is lucky that her roommate is still alive, and also that Germany no longer has the death penalty. Otherwise, for fatally unplugging her roommate, they might have plugged her in. Anyway, let's get to our first segment here on this edition of the Stuff All program, shall we? Bob McGrath, one of the original longtime residents of Sesame Street, has left us. The actor-singer was 90 when he passed away on December 4th at his New Jersey home. He was one of the 4 non-Muppet cast members when Sesame Street debuted on public television stations in November of 1969. I had the pleasure of talking to Bob back in December of 2004. By that time, he had already spent 35 years on Sesame Street, but was moonlighting on Broadway doing a holiday show called Santa Meets the Ice Dragon, which was slated to debut on the Great White Way just 2 days after we spoke. So we talked a lot about that, but of course, we had to delve into his extensive career, both on Sesame Street and before. Here's a small part of that conversation now. When you started on Sesame Street 35 years ago, did you ever have any idea the impact that show would have on two generations of kids?
I don't think we could have hoped for that. I mean, I think we all had pretty good feelings about the show, even partway through that first year, and certainly by the end of the first year, we were getting wonderful feedback. We were almost the only game in town other than Captain Kangaroo and Fred Rogers. And of course, you've got some great shows up there, but in the States, there were other smaller shows. But to think that it might be surviving, we're into our 36th year right now, and it might be in 120 English-speaking countries and about 21 foreign co-productions. I think there's a new one happening in Bangladesh and India right now, from what I hear. That would be inconceivable. But Joan Cooney had a great idea, and I think the show has kept up the level that it needed to have, and we just won an Emmy last year for still the best preschool show. So after 35 years, we're very proud of that.
Now, unfortunately, it was one of the shows that was lost on me because it came along when I was 11. Huh? So I was beyond the age group that your show was targeted, but you could see, I mean, when it came on, it was just like hypnotic to kids. Absolutely hypnotic.
It was, there was almost 2 years worth of very intense research prior to the first show ever going on the air, so they really did it right, and it's still as heavily researched right now, every show, as it was 35 years ago. In fact, it's always interesting when the writers get their work assignments and so forth. Each year, as it did this year, it will say the 36th experimental season of Sesame Street, and it really is an ongoing experiment. It's constantly changing to meet the kids' needs of today's kids, as opposed to a generation or so ago, because an awful lot of things change in kids' lives in the last 30 years.
Now, something that I remember from when I was a kid was watching Sing Along with Mitch.
Your mommy let you stay up late enough?
Oh yeah. You see, I was hypnotized by following the bouncing ball. Even though I might have been able to read at that point, it was like, oh, this is cool.
So was most of Japan, because we toured there for a month, and they were learning it. They were watching it to learn English because of watching the lyrics and so forth. But yeah, it was a wonderful show. I just talked to Mitch a couple of months ago. He's, I think, 93 on the last 4th of July, and still in good health and going strong. But we had a wonderful time. 25 guys plus 8 or 10 girls, the dancing girls, and Leslie Uggams and Diana Trask and so forth. In fact, I just saw Leslie Uggams in a play about a month ago, and we had a great little reunion. But that was a great fun show to do, and there's still a few of us surviving that show. So, but that was good.
The only way I can describe your career is just blessed.
Yeah, I would say so. I've been singing since I was about 5 years old in all sorts of things, but one of my favorite expressions is, if you want to hear God laugh, tell him your plans, because every time I make very serious plans about certain things, I end up going a different direction, but it's all worked out incredibly well. I mean, the Mitch Miller thing was a very nice opening for me, a break after I worked on a degree here in New York. And then that opened up Japan for me, where I spent the better part of 3 years, about 9 or 10 trips over there, because we had toured there, and I found out I had Babu Magulas fan clubs all over the country. So I ended up going back about every 3 months for 6-7 weeks at a time. So, and then I was home for a short time after that, deciding not to go back because I was kind of being away from home too much, and Sesame sort of didn't really fall in my lap. I heard about it, and when someone first mentioned that there's a new kid show, do you think you'd be interested? I said no, not in the least, because I thought it might be another not so terrific, kiddie show. There's a little on the silly side. And then when I was called in a couple of months later, and I saw some of the early animation and film, and at a guy by the name of Jim Henson I'd never heard of at that point, and saw some of that Muppet work and realized this was going to be really a very different and quite brilliant show. So hundreds of us auditioned on videotape, and they showed it to a bunch of 5-year-olds around the country, and they narrowed it down to a cast of 4, and so I got my job from 5-year-olds, basically. So
well, you were
very lucky.
What were your original plans? You said you made plans and they went awry. What were your plans when you first got into performing?
Well, I mean, I came to New York to get a graduate degree in voice at Manhattan School of Music out of a couple of years in the Army in Germany. And I had hoped to be able to sing professionally, but, one never knows. It's a sketchy business. And so I was teaching in a private boys' school while I was getting a degree, and I thought I might have to go that direction, which I enjoyed. And then I freelanced everything from rock and roll dates at night to Gregorian chants, and singing in the morning and recording with Igor Stravinsky and a quartet and Pablo Casal. So I was doing just about every kind of music possible. But from the Japan thing, I was performing major concerts for several thousand teenagers over there, and I thought I'd love to be another Andy Williams, Perry Como. Those were sort of my heroes when I first came to New York, because I thought the shows were beautifully produced. And I thought maybe I could be another kind of, in that style, because I was doing all of that kind of thing in Japan on NHK and all the television shows there. But by then the Beatles had invaded and music had been turned upside down, so, that never would have happened. That was when I said no, not in the least. Would I be interested? That's sort of what I had in the back of my mind. But thank God I took a look and ended up the direction I have, because I've had just some of the best jobs in the whole world in the last 35, 40 years.
It's funny, you mentioned both Perry Como and Andy Williams, and I know that at Christmas time, PBS usually runs their specials. And for me, it's not Christmas unless I see at least one, if not both, of their Christmas shows. Yeah,
they were just produced in both of them were just fine singers, musicians, and I love that style. It's nice and easy, but well done, and their production values were just top notch, and so I admired that enormously. And I never would have been able to do that sort of thing here, but I was able to do it in Japan. I would get huge orchestras and a lot of. For one television show, I did, I think, 135 spots, and so they played them every night. It was like being a regular on The Tonight Show every night. So that gave me the opportunity to really learn kind of my skill and what's possible. Here you'd get, if you got a 3-piece band, you'd be happy. And there they said, how many do you want in the orchestra? And I started off, I said, well, a full big band, which is about 15 with brass and reeds. And they said yes, and they looked up, and I saw I was able to go on, I said, in a full string complement. So, I got the whole works, 30, 35, 40 people for some concerts, which was Patti Page and I did a joint concert in Osaka one night together, and just a lot of wonderful memories.
Patti Page, the singing rage. Wow.
Yeah, she's still out there doing it. I just talked to somebody that works with her, as a matter of fact. So she's still doing Tennessee Waltz and the spinning mirror ball, I understand.
Bob, tell me, who's more in awe when they meet you? Kids who are currently watching Sesame Street, or those who grew up watching Sesame Street?
I would say definitely those that grew up watching the show, and for a number of reasons. One, there are so many more shows available for kids. There's probably a half a dozen networks, each with pumping out 4 or 5 different shows, so they can really click around to a lot of different shows. Kids are still interested, but it's a little different environment now in terms of the cast than it was many years ago. And the reaction to kids even 15, 16, 17, but particularly kids in their mid-20s, early 30s, that's just great fun. They just flip. We just did the Macy Day Parade with 2.5 million people up and down the street, and it's fun to see cops in their 30s and 40s dancing and acting like 4-year-olds jumping, as the float goes by. And you get that a lot. And really funny reactions. Sometimes little teenagers when they're 14, 15 will take a look and they'll break into uncontrollable laughing. And I said, what's going on? They said, well, it's just a throwback. We remember sitting in front of the TV with our peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and the whole thing all comes back to them. And then I've had grown women burst into uncontrollable sobbing and crying. they said they can't explain why, except, again, it's the same thing as kind of a rush of all of their early wonderful memories. So when I do my concerts, it's great fun because now it's a double generation. It's all the parents that grew up with the show and bringing their kids, and they all both know the music and everything, and so it's really a wonderful audience. I love performing, especially with symphonies.
That was just part of a 2004 conversation with Sesame Street's Bob McGrath, who passed away at the age of 90 on December the 4th. Bob was one of those rare people in the entertainment world that everybody who knew him or worked with him had nothing but extremely nice things to say about him. He was loved by just about everyone. He also did some amazing charity work here in Canada, both out west and right here in Montreal, where he would come back annually to host telethons that benefited children's hospitals. Just an amazing gentleman. He will be missed. You're listening to the Stuff File program with me, Peter Anthony Holder.
There's still more guests, more news, and an idiot of the day coming your way on the Stuff File program. Stay tuned. The Stuff File program is a listener-supported, fan-funded radio show that depends on you for our success. Join us at patreon.com to help make this show an even bigger and better radio experience. Sign up and find out about our rewards program. Being a patron doesn't have to be a long-term commitment. There's absolutely no obligation. You could join today and end whenever you'd like, but the time we have your support would be so greatly appreciated. We'd also love to hear your thoughts about the show and even your ideas for rewards. Join us for the ride. Join us at patreon.com/The Stuff File program.
Hello, my name is Malik. You're listening to my Uncle Peter. I'm going to keep this short because there's something called child labor laws. So I'll just say, here he is, Peter Anthony Holder.
Thank you, my little rugrat. And just a reminder, next week on the Stuff File program, once again, an encore presentation of the Meshach and Malik Christmas Special. Stay tuned and enjoy it. That's on the Stuff File program next week. And still to come on this week's Stuff File program, we'll meet Jennifer Khoe, one of the actresses from Kung Fu, plus Andrew Fazekas, the Night Sky Guy, talks about many things, including the successful Artemis mission. Plus, we also have an Idiot of the Day and much more Stuff File news right here, right now. Okay, this is a 911 call that was in Ohio on November the 5th.
Butler County 911, where's your emergency?
So my neighbor just shot my dad.
Do you guys have problems with your neighbor?
Yes, he's come over multiple times making statements.
The call came from the son of 43-year-old Anthony Lee King. Police and an ambulance raced to the scene in Morgan Township, Ohio, but King was dead from multiple gunshot wounds. He had been doing chores in his front yard. A grand jury has charged 26-year-old Austin Jean Combs with aggravated murder with an enhancement to the charge by using a gun. Combs, who allegedly admitted the charge after shooting King several times with a revolver, was jailed pending a $950,000 bond. His apparent motive was disclosed in the 911 call by King's wife.
He's come over like 4 times confronting my husband because he thought he was a Democrat. Why? Why? Please.
Okay,
I don't understand.
Yes. This was the weekend before the U.S. midterm elections. You will note that King's wife said the shooter thought her husband was a Democrat. She didn't say he was a Democrat, which means he wasn't a Democrat. There are many punchlines that come to mind for this story, but no, I won't share any of those. I'll just say it has come to this. And we'll move on. 51-year-old Mark Curtis Wells of Biloxi, Mississippi, and another golfer got into an altercation on November 28th at Hollywood Casino. They had played earlier in the day at Bridges Golf Course, where the argument allegedly began. When officers arrived at the casino parking lot, they found one of the men suffering a facial injury. His nose had been bitten off. Wells took off from the scene in the Tesla, but turned himself in on November 30th and was charged with mayhem. the nose was never found.
Got your nose. Oh, yeah? Well, I got your face.
Calm down, Chris. It's only a trick.
And that's how things start simply before they escalate. The clerk at a Goodwill thrift store in Cornelia, Georgia, called 911, said Police Chief Jonathan Roberts the call for service went out that someone had struck the building, and unfortunately, that's not a rare occurrence. We have automobile versus building accidents quite frequently. How frequently, you ask? Before officers arrived, the woman backed her car out and drove right into the building again. The unidentified woman, an employee at the store, was not injured, but she was arrested. Said Roberts she was under the influence of huffing a duster can. Although she was arrested, Roberts went on to say, I know some resources have been afforded to her, and I know we've spoken to some family, and we really hope the young lady is able to get the help that she needs. Well, the police chief is showing some goodwill to a Goodwill employee, but I want to go back to the comment he made about we have automobile versus building accidents quite frequently. Seriously? I'm assuming that the building always wins. And finally, in this section of Stuff File News, before we get to our next guest here in this edition of the Stuff File program with me, Peter Anthony Holder, when the clerk at a cell phone repair store in Alachua, Florida, confronted a customer who allegedly tried to walk out with accessories he hadn't paid for, the man put the items back, lifted his shirt to reveal a gun and a taser, and told him, I do what I want, and walked out to his car. The clerk saw that the man put on a jacket and a bandana over his face, so he locked the door, told his other customers to go to the back, where it's safer, and call police. The man came back to the store and, finding the door locked, started pounding on it, demanding to be let in, and was still doing that when officers arrived and detained him. 32-year-old Austin Michael Croy was arrested, charged with robbery with a weapon. Gee, I guess Austin isn't getting the phone accessories he wanted. In fact, I'm willing to bet that if you call Austin's cell phone, the only thing you'll hear now is,
We're sorry. You have reached a number that has been disconnected or is no longer in service.
Anyway, let's get to our next guest here in this edition of the Stuff File program, shall we? Actress Jennifer Khoe is presently recurring in the third season of CW's Kung Fu, which also airs in Canada on CTV. In addition to being an actress, Jennifer is also a producer, not of the Kung Fu show, but of other things. We'll talk about that in a bit. She joins us via Zoom from Vancouver. Hi, Jennifer.
Hello, Peter. Hi. Nice to thank you for having me.
Thanks for being on the program with us. So tell us about your role in this show, which is an updated version of the Kung Fu I remember as a kid.
Yes.
One of the things I noticed is it's different about it is first of all, it actually has actual Asian actors, which is good to see. And it's not set in a period time. It's not a Western like it was in the old show. It's set in contemporary times.
Yes, exactly. So the original Kung Fu series that was in syndication, that was in the 70s, that was starring the late David Carradine. I actually did not watch the show. I wasn't born yet, but I did do my research.
Sure. Rub that in.
For the audition.
Yeah, rub that in, Jennifer. Rub that in.
So I saw some clips. Yeah, and it was cool. It was a cool blend of like Western and martial arts. And now this reboot, which Christina Kim and Bob Behrens has taken into their hands, is right, like you said, it's set in modern day. It's in San Francisco, and it features a like butt-kicking female Asian lead and a predominantly Asian cast, which is really cool to see on the CW.
Now you play the role of Xiao, so tell us about the character you play.
Yeah, Xiao is such a fun one. This has been such an incredible experience. So she first appeared in season 2, and she was a new villain in season 2, and she was actually played by another actress. So this character she shapeshifts. She's a traveler. So what's been really fun with this villain is that she inhabits a lot of the other characters in the show. So you get to see her basically kicking butt as well as other characters. And she's got a lot of tricks up her sleeve. Pretty always thinking, very manipulative villain, super fun to play because it's hopefully not much like myself. So it's fun to dig into a character that's very different from you.
How did the role come your way? And I ask that question because one of the things people always talk about when it comes to acting is you always say, yes, you can do X, Y, and Z. Here it's a lot of martial arts. So did they come to you and say, do you know martial arts?
That was it wasn't a requirement. It was a nice to have kind of thing. So when the casting came in, it was like, we're looking for this type of character. If you have any movement, martial arts experience, it's always a plus. So I'm not officially trained martial artist or anything like that, but I did play competitive sports and I danced growing up. So that definitely helped. And I've done some fight choreography and stunts in the past for other projects. So, yeah.
Since you've been doing the role, has it been more difficult or easier to do the physical stuff than when you first started?
I would say yes. I mean, we work with such a world-class stunt team and they're so patient as well, but they just really break it down for us. And we have like excellent stunt doubles as well that make us look pretty cool on screen. But definitely it's just like, it's exercising a muscle and your body starts getting used to moving in different ways. But it's definitely challenging and I have so much respect for the art form. I mean, martial to do it properly is very difficult. They make us look cool.
As time goes on in a role that you do on a television series like this, do you find that you have a little bit of say as to what you think your character can or should do? And conversely, do the writers come to you now knowing who you are, giving traits to the character that they feel accentuates something that you naturally do?
Yeah. And that's been really, really fun for this one because, you have ideas of mannerisms and movements and small gestures maybe that this character would do, especially like the evil ones. You can really have some fun with it. So, you come on set and you kind of do what you think this character would do. And I've definitely been able to inject some of my interpretation of the character, and the writers hopefully and showrunners have responded really well. And they're like, yeah, do more of that, or they had expected this character to be a certain way and maybe I presented it differently. And they actually ended up liking that better, like more toned down than what they had expected. But it's been really, really fun to kind of like play and collaborate creatively with the writers on it.
It's been a little while since you've been on the show. So, what's the reaction to your character, and what kind of fan appeal do you get? I'm sure you get lots of little girls wanting to be you.
Little girls. Well, it's funny because this character, she's like the big bad wolf. She's pretty scary, and a lot of people. She plays the mother of one of the leads. In this show. So people are like, ooh, Xiao's like a bad, when you have evil characters on shows. So it's like, it's been interesting because little girls are probably, she's tough. She's like a tough tiger mom, a little bit scary. But people are loving you always have to have a bad guy in these shows and people are kind of loving that the evil presence and wanting to defeat her, I think.
Well, since you described her as a tiger mom, how has your family reacted to your playing this role? Oh my
gosh. When my mom first watched one of the first scenes, she was like, oh my gosh, you are so scary. It means I'm doing a good job, I guess. Yeah, people, friends and family, like I said, it's a departure from my normal personality. So people are like, wow, you really bring it and inhabit this villain quite well. So
now, as I said,
the dark side, right?
Yeah, exactly. As I said in the introduction, you're also working as a producer, not on this show, but on other things. So what is it about producing that is it the freedom to create stuff and in turn also find roles for yourself that maybe you're not getting otherwise?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I have a production company in LA, and I started off actually producing music videos. So I've worked with some pretty large artists like Jennifer Lopez, Ricky Martin, LMFAO. I've produced music videos back in the day. And that was such a wonderful rush of creative, collaboration with people. And now we do a lot of, commercials. We still do some things in the music video space, but also I've been able to parlay those skills as a producer to, yes, create content and opportunities for myself. Like martial arts, for example, and stunts and fighting. I did a short film called Mom Fight a couple years ago because I really wanted to put together some fight choreography for my reel, and having those skills as a producer, allows me to create that for myself. So it's been very, very handy, using very different parts of your brain as an actor versus a producer, but it's been beneficial, to be able to do both.
Well, I hope you have a long run in Kung Fu, but that aside, is there a role out there that you're just dying to do or create for yourself that you just want to put on screen?
You know what? I know this sounds cheesy, but my role on Kung Fu at being a supervillain has been one of my dream roles since I've started. So truly, I mean, this has been such a blessing, and it's been so fun to play her. So if I can be a supervillain on a Marvel movie, man, that would be a dream. But this is pretty close. This is a pretty close second. So,
do you have any connections with the folks at Marvel?
I do not. I don't. I only know the casting director. So, I mean, not personally either. So. We'll see. Maybe, CW and, all these like CW shows and things like that. Maybe people are watching, but I'd love to play supervillain on a Marvel.
Recently on the show, I spoke to actor Bruce Beck, and I'll ask you the same question that I asked him, and that is, do you find it's a bit of a renaissance right now for emerging roles for Asian actors?
Absolutely. I still think we have a long way to go. It's been a long time coming, but I think there are, and I've been lucky. I feel like I've been very lucky to have felt like I've had more opportunities to be, audition and be on screen. And there's more roles, hopefully. And like I said, we have a long way to go, but that are not just, you don't just have to be Asian for the role. And it's like, we are normal people that can play regular roles as well as not just the stereotypical ones. And I think we're slowly getting there, and it's an exciting time for us.
Is it a more difficult road to hoe when it comes to Asian roles because of Asian roles for women?
I don't know if it's necessarily, I don't know if it's more difficult being an Asian female in the industry. I think, like I said, I think we've been really lucky, and more roles are opening up, and just, everyone's trying to look at each person just as a human being. And there are so many female roles and so many male roles and that kind of thing. So I haven't, luckily, again, I don't think I've felt that disparity in the opportunities for myself as an Asian female.
Well, again, congratulations on your role in Kung Fu.
Thank you so much.
People will go around saying, "Oh, there goes the shapeshifter who kicks butt."
Yeah, exactly. Thank you so much for having me, Peter. It was great to chat.
Actress Jennifer Khoe, one of the stars of CW's Kung Fu, which also airs in Canada on CTV. Check out your local listings to find out where and when you can watch the show. You can go to my website at thestufffile.com to the page for this show, which is show number 0695, and you'll find links to Jennifer's site. You're listening to the Stuff File program with me, Peter Anthony Holder.
Portions of the Stuff File program are available to you via Audia.io. At Audia, you'll find hundreds and hundreds of Stuff File program interviews going all the way back to 2009. That's Audia, AUDEA.io. There's more Stuff File program coming your way right after this break.
Here's a brief word about our show and my book. If you become a regular Patreon patron of the Stuff File program, I'll give you an e-version of my book, Great Conversations, my interviews with two men on the moon and a galaxy of stars. It's easy to do. Just go to patreon.com and become a patron to help make this show an even bigger and better radio experience. So, join Patreon and claim your copy of Great Conversations, my interviews with two men on the moon and a galaxy of stars. Sign up at patreon.com/The Stuff File Program.
Latitude 47 degrees 14 minutes north. Longitude 84 degrees 39 minutes west. Location Montreal, Canada. This is the Stuff File Program with Peter Anthony Holder. Now, the Stuff File presents Andrew Fazekas, the Night Sky Guy. It's radio that's out of this world.
Andrew Fazekas, the Night Sky Guy, is a member of the Royal Astronomical Society of Canada and the author of National Geographic's Backyard Guide to the Night Sky, and also the new National Geographic's Stargazer's Atlas, the ultimate guide to the night sky. And Andrew, after some extremely shaky starts, NASA's Artemis mission seems to have been, or at least currently is, a success.
Yeah, I mean, after all those delays, you and I have been talking about this for months, and I was kind of down about the thing and very skeptical. But look, it's going well. I am so excited to see those images. I don't know, Peter, if you saw them in the last few days of the Orion spacecrafts doing this loop around the moon, and we see the moon juxtaposed with the Earth in the background. It's been absolutely spectacular. And just on December 5th, last Monday, we saw the uncrewed Orion module barnstorming the lunar surface by something like 128 kilometers or something above the surface. And the visuals, there's actually live footage, which I think is incredible. I love seeing these live footages being beamed back from the spacecraft, showing the surface of the moon with all the craters and then the little thin crescent Earth in the background, so far away. We're talking, something like 400,000 kilometers distance between the two worlds, right? The moon and the Earth. So really and it's great being able to see that live. I think it's very inspiring for people. It's a smart thing that NASA's doing to get that interest, people keep that excitement going about Artemis, because, it was awful with those delays. There were the technical delays on the launch pad going back to late August when they first attempted launch. And then in September, you had the hurricanes, where they had to actually bring the vehicle back into the assembly building for fixing some of the technical stuff and, waiting out the hurricane. And then there was a second hurricane, Hurricane Ian, where there was actually some minor damage, but it made it. And now we're seeing it going through its final loops around the moon. And now they've made that final burn to come back to Earth. Now what everyone, of course, is waiting for is to see that splashdown in the Pacific off the coast of San Diego. And are the parachutes going to open? And even more so, is the heat shield going to work appropriately to keep the insides of Orion comfortable, habitable conditions for future astronauts? Because remember, this is uncrewed, right? So the next one, Artemis 2, which is scheduled in about 1.5 to 2 years, will have the first crew mimicking this mission that we're seeing now, exactly the same. Will that spacecraft survive that splashdown? That's the final big technology test for the mission.
Okay, so you're saying that Artemis 2 will mimic this particular mission of Artemis 1. So it will not be landing on the moon? And if not, when do NASA engineers and technicians expect a landed spacecraft on the moon? Would it be Artemis 3, Artemis 4?
Yeah, well, the plan right now is Artemis 2 to go in 2024. That's pending that, everything works out well. So far, so good, but the return to Earth safely is really the final biggest kind of thing. That's the nail biter, going through the atmosphere and surviving that. But let's say if all of that goes well, they are now currently scheduled for a follow-up mission, Artemis 2, for 2024, probably in the second half of the year. If that goes well, and that's crewed and orbiting the moon and then returning, Artemis 3 is the one that will land humans on the surface of the moon in the South Pole. We're looking 2025. It'll be a crew of 4 astronauts, 2 of which will actually make the descent to the lunar surface. We think they've announced that it will be a woman and a person of color that will actually land on the surface. And so that will be a big milestone. And it'll be in the southern part of the moon. Actually, the south pole of the moon is where that is scheduled to land.
We've talked about some of the positive things of Artemis. Let's talk a bit about some of the negative things. And that is, for some reason, Artemis still has not tested life support on the rocket. Now, again, there are no humans on board, but there are mannequins up there, electronic dummies, so to speak, that mimic what a human would go through. Why didn't they test the life support system on this Orion capsule?
Yeah, so the life support system, which is really built, the machinery for that is built by Airbus. They're testing out everything else, but the capsule's life support system is only going to be done really in 2024, just before the astronauts actually go on their flight. You know, they're really worried about that at this point is the whole rocket and the re-entry of this space capsule back into the Earth's atmosphere. That is really probably the one that is really going to have a problem. If there's any problem on this entire mission, and people weren't really thinking the launch was going to be a problem, but there's been a lot of talk for years, really, is in terms of re-entry, because that is a very tricky thing. And we've seen in the past with the shuttle missions of, what can happen on, if it goes awry. We saw that with the Columbia disaster, and which by the way set off the whole retirement of the space shuttle system to begin with. They're going to be testing it out, but not in this one. This one, they had such a full docket. And like you said, there's no breathable atmosphere inside the capsule, but they do have the test dummies that are looking to see if everything else is working well. And they don't really seem to mind that there's no breathable air, I guess.
You mentioned the spectacular pictures from the capsule, and yes, there have been a lot of spectacular pictures. Anybody who listens to the show regularly knows I'm a monarchist, and I was a big fan of the Queen, still mourn her passing, and I quote the Queen often. And one of the quotes that she always said was, "The monarchy must be seen to be believed." That's one of the reasons she did a lot of walkabouts. That's why she wore colorful clothing. It has to be seen to be believed. I bring that up only because when the launch took place, and it was a nighttime launch of Orion, there were so many cameras on the ground, but not too many on the sides of the rocket. Considering it was a nighttime launch, all you saw was basically a plume of smoke and not much else. It wasn't a spectacular launch from a visual point of view because there weren't, I feel, enough cameras on the rocket itself.
Yeah, and this is really interesting that you bring that up, because you look at SpaceX, and they have cameras all over the place, and they really, really know how to showcase the spectacular aspect of it. And I think it's a missed opportunity by NASA, because a nighttime launch is so spectacular by just the nature of it, that you're missing a great marketing opportunity there with that. And today, cameras, let's be honest, they're disposable, they're tiny. You can stick them on to all different parts across the rocket. Again, here, this is where I think private industry really gets it and understands it. And NASA, the public agency, may be missing out on opportunities. Hopefully, they're going to be taking some notes from SpaceX's playbook and being able to really parlay that this whole experience. And you just watch when Starship, SpaceX's own mega rocket, which is actually bigger than the SLS system that NASA has, just watch what kind of coverage they're going to give for that test when they do the very first test flight, which is just probably in a matter of a month or two away now. We're going to see some spectacular footage, I'm sure. But I'm thinking, Peter, just as I'm saying that, look at SpaceX's rival, Blue Origins. Do you remember the problems with the
exactly
the footage that they had? It was very lackluster.
Yeah. Well, again, under the heading of you have to be seen to be believed, I think NASA has missed an opportunity. There were 6 Apollo missions to the moon that landed on the moon, and with all the missions, 6 different missions, there is a debris field. There's the base of the lunar landing module. There's the buggies that they drove around in. All the other debris that they left behind. I would have thought that cameras would have captured one of these locations to give us an explanation or give us a visual of what those locations look like some 40, 50 years later, and what's left on those from those missions left behind by NASA.
Yeah, I mean, and again, another missed opportunity. And I think it's probably going to take a private company probably down the road when, a lot of the firsts are done is tag on these cameras and do these flyovers, because, some of these sites, what we're talking about from 50 years ago, are really almost like national monuments now, right? They're going to be tourist attractions. And yeah, I mean, we're going to want to get some really good footage. And we will. I mean, we had about 10 years ago, the Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter snapped some photos showing the wheels of the lunar rover from the later Apollo missions. You can see the tracks and all of that. But, not very clear photographs. I think those will come, but I think it's just later down the road, and it'll come from, I think, private industry.
Absolutely. We're just about out of time, and there's so many things we can talk about, including things like China launching 3 astronauts to their space station, Japan, or SpaceX rather, delaying the launch of Japan's moon lander again. So perhaps we can go to Patreon and discuss some of these things. Are you game for it?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, but before we do it, I just got to say right off the bat that it's the holiday season, and this is the last time of the year we're going to be chatting. It's the holiday season, and if anybody out there is thinking of a particular gift for someone who is big on the night sky, there's nothing better than your coffee table book, Stargazer's Atlas, The Ultimate Guide to the Night Sky. So, and people can get a copy directly from you, right?
That's right. Folks can get a signed, dedicated copy, personally signed by me, and I'll be shipping them out for the holidays and get them while they're hot. I've got them, and you can find out all that information on my website, thenightskyguide.com. Just follow the links to the 2 books. I actually have the Stargazer's Atlas and my bestseller Backyard Guide to the Night Sky, which is a pocket guide. But the Atlas is a 6.5-pound huge coffee table book, and then you've got the Backyard Guide, which is the handy one you can take for travel. So I've got you covered for both.
Okay, let's go on to Patreon.
Let's do it.
Andrew Fazekas, the Night Sky Guy, and the author of National Geographic's Backyard Guide to the Night Sky, and also the new National Geographic Stargazer's Atlas, The Ultimate Guide to the Night Sky. You can check out his website at thenightskyguide.com. You can go to my website at thestuffile.com to the page for this show, which is show number 0695, and you'll find links to Andrew's site to get your own personal autographed copy of his books. Patreon subscribers, you can hear more of Andrew as a Patreon reward extra, where we'll discuss China's astronauts going to their own space station, a historical mega tsunami on Mars, and more. Just go to our Patreon page, and if you're not already a member, become one of the select patrons of the show. Visit patreon.com/thestuffileprogram. You're listening to the Stuff File program with me, Peter Anthony Holder. We've got just a few more minutes to go. We do have an Idiot of the Day coming your way, but a few more Stuff File news stories before we get to that point. Bill Falls, a caretaker at the Hickory, North Carolina Aviation Museum, heard something out of place. He followed the sound and was surprised to find someone in the cockpit of a Lockheed T-33 Shooting Star jet trainer. When he peered inside, he saw this furry little head pop up, and suddenly there was another, then another, and another. It was 5 kittens who were apparently born in the aircraft. Bill knew exactly who was responsible. It was Phantom, a stray cat that lives at the museum. So, what to do? Said Falls, she chose the shooting star for a reason. Who were we to argue? They let the kittens stay in the plane for 6 weeks, at which point they brought in a local humane society so that they could be adopted out to families. Phantom was spayed and allowed to stay at the museum. The kittens were named Prowler, Hornet, Mohawk, Corsair, and Falcon, names of various planes. Interesting how the cat chose a Lockheed T-33 Shooting Star. I would have put money on her choosing an F-14 Tomcat. There are certain stories where the headline alone says way too much about our society today. Here's one of them. Hawaii mayor asks people to stop throwing marshmallows into Mauna Loa lava. Seriously. Throngs of people are traveling to view lava ooze from Hawaii's Mauna Loa volcano that is erupting for the first time in nearly 40 years, and some people are not following the rules, said Hawaii County Mayor Mitch Roth. We've been seeing people being really disrespectful, putting trash out there, throwing marshmallows into the lava. Not only is it bad for the environment and the people are trespassing, but it's disrespectful to Hawaiians and their love for Madame Pele and the culture of Hawaii. It's really bad, so we ask people to be respectful. Roth said about 17,000 cars have traveled the 4.5-mile lava viewing route on Old Saddle Road since the eruption started. Mauna Loa erupted November 27th for the first time since 1984 and has continued to spew lava, putting on a spectacular show. You know, it's only a matter of time before some idiot goes up there to do the lava dance.
Let's play the floor is lava game. When I say the floor is lava, get off the floor. And when I say dance,
And speaking of idiots, it's time now for the Idiot of the Day.
And now it's time for the strange things adults do. The Stuff File presents the Idiot of the Day.
The Rockdale County, Georgia Sheriff's Department posted a list of its top 10 most wanted fugitives on Facebook on November 28th. One local criminal evidently felt left out, though. Christopher Spaulding, an area man with 2 warrants for his arrest, wrote in the comment section, "How about me?" The Sheriff's Department responded, "We're on the way," and on December the 1st arrested Spaulding. Later they commented, "We appreciate you for your assistance in your capture." Spaulding's warrants were for a felony violation of probation. Now why? Oh why? If there are warrants out for your arrest, would you post on a police Facebook page when they're looking for criminals, "What about me?" One reason, and one reason only: you're an idiot!
Gee, I'm only a kid, but even I know you're an idiot.
And that's it for this edition of the Stuff File program, number 0695. Hope you enjoyed it. The website is thestufffile.com, and once again, stuff is spelled S-T-U-P-H, where you'll find information and links on all of our guests by going to the weekly Stuff File page. Just look for the corresponding program number, and once again, that's 0695. Email me at peter@thestufffile.com. You can also find me on Facebook and Twitter as P.A. Holder, and don't forget to check us out on patreon.com, where you can become a patron of the program. Hope to see you back here for our next show on the air, online, or as a download. We're coming to you from everywhere, including KDXRadio.com, TrueTalkRadio.com, over the air on World FM in New Zealand, MediaCore in Singapore, WLSLLP-FM in Dade City, Florida, CKUW-FM in Winnipeg, CFMU in Hamilton, CKLU in Sudbury, Local 107.3 FM in St. John, CHSR in Fredericton, and also streaming on just about any streaming service your little heart desires. That's it. Bye-bye.
You've been listening to the Stuff File program with Peter Anthony Holder, a presentation of Flying Fish Communications. The Stuff File reminds you never try to drown your sorrows. They'll just learn to swim anyway.